Alright, live.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. واللي في جيبتك هاته.
Now they're wearing pajamas today.
I'm wearing pajamas every day.
Link is live.
Alright, live.
Okay, what do you mean? How do you know I was interviewing for jobs, Nather?
Look at you. You look
What?
like that.
Who's this?
I dress like this every day.
Hey, were you interviewing for a job?
I'll tell you guys about it later.
Now you're literally in a suit. I was like, bro, what is she interviewing for?
I always wear blazers.
Baby.
Let me know when you update the linky link.
I already did.
Oh wow, that was beautiful timing.
And Taha got it on lockdown now, mashallah.
And when you told me you can just click the link from up here, that changed my life.
Hey, QN, we got QN in the chat. Ooh, assalamu alaikum assalam, Qari Noman.
Flake, what a flake. Flake.
No, he's not a flake. Haram, man. Like,
Tom, he's so busy. Don't pick on him.
It's okay, you can pick on him. You a flake, Clarissa. You a flake.
You just chilling eating his pakoras. We're out here slaving away.
welcome to.
How many viewers do we have so far?
Get your that book's ready, right?
Okay,
Okay.
posted.
Allahu Akbar. Oh, gosh. Yo,
Yo.
guys, I have to get a coronavirus test tomorrow.
That's a lovely thing to drop.
I hope you do well, inshallah 4.0.
Thank you. I'll let you guys know if I pass your fail.
That's so funny.
We'll make dua for you.
Although you'll be
Thank you, Taha.
I don't know. Coronavirus is gonna see you. It's like, not this body. Skedaddle.
I don't know
I'll
if that's a
take it.
compliment or an insult.
It's
No, I can't tell either.
It's a little bit of both.
It's okay.
Nather knows I respect him. It's fine.
You're not did.
Yeah. Naham?
Do you have that one shirt that says the MSA shirt you guys have is like God over whatever?
Yeah.
God is
It's in my-
better than all highs and lows.
Or do you guys have any?
Go to the back of your shirt.
You guys have any more of those at the MSA? Man, I'm about to like cop one. Man, that's
You can buy
dope.
the real one online. You can buy the real one from 5
Hey,
Kilos.
chill out, Taha. That is the real one, right?
Oh,
That's
this is the real one, G. Okay, what you
Wait,
talking
you
about?
put it on shirt, Taha? Wait.
Hey, Nazir, can I ask you for a favor?
I have the OG.
Can you show us the back of your shirt?
Back of my... Yo! Calm down, bro. I'll show you guys after the live, bro, but it's not good.
Yo, it's
Wait,
not bad. It's not bad. It's just
Oh, you know on the back of my
It
shirt.
doesn't work with the time right now.
Well, you know what's on the back of my shirt? You've seen it, I think, right? Taha?
you don't have a tape on it anymore?
I saw it as you were leaning to
Did
grab
you see when he turned around and there was no tape?
Bro, man's went to work.
Oh, Allah, bro. I don't support that. It's just... Well, never mind.
We love the front though. We love the front.
Yeah, the front we support. The you know.
Someone said we're 20 minutes late.
Business in the front, party in the back.
Hey, someone said I would like to make a formal complaint. We're 20
Yeah,
minutes.
that's just Lena because she texted me saying where we at, and then they're all yelling at me because we were 17 minutes late.
Oh, did you not inform people that we're going to be starting at 11:15 today?
I did not.
I
I don't know if anyone else did.
apologize. Probably I should have done that. I'll take the blame on that because
No, that is.
be late.
We're
Well,
at
blame Taha. He's
27
always late for
viewers
Tarawih,
right now.
to be honest. It's always Taha's fault.
True, my bad. Sorry, I'm just busy.
Taha's such an easy target. You can't pick on him like that.
Oh, how was your Tarawih today? How was your Tarawih?
How so I revised for like 4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
4.5 hours. Never mind.
4.5 minutes and it wasn't good. I mean, it felt well because I just jumped around different surahs that were easy, but yeah, it was literally like 2 minutes of revising. But alhamdulillah. We're at 28 viewers. If you guys would be amazing and share the link with your friends and family.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to do that. I'm gonna do that right now.
Your worst enemy, like even send it to them too. Like we would really appreciate it.
For
Hit us with a like, hit us with a subscribe. We really appreciate the support. Y'all are amazing. Alhamdulillah.
Oh, I just want you guys to know I tried Hyderabadi biryani today. Yeah, Pakistani biryani is way better. Bye. No regrets.
Oh, I'm not.
I'm frozen.
Like the movie, just let it go.
Yo,
I'm not doing your puns today.
Hey, yo, Taha, should I share the link with the MSA brothers?
Do it.
Do it. Do it. Why not?
Let's go.
That's so funny. All right, assalamu alaikum everybody. Jazakallah khair for hopping in. We're at 30 viewers right now, so I think we'll go ahead and start. Today's topic is what the power of dua. That's a really, really deep topic, and I think there's so much that you can like hit with that, and so many different things that you can kind of branch off into with this topic. So I kind of just wanted to start off kind of easy. I'm gonna my favorite du'as to kind of go through are kind of like making dua for your parents. I like the Quranic du'as like Rabbi Rahamhuma kama rabbayani saghira, Rabbi ja'alni muqim as-salah, like that dua, and then Rabbana atina fid dunya. Those are kind of I really like those du'as because they incorporate so much and they're so like vast in their meaning, and like a lot of like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers a lot through those du'as. So like what are your go-to du'as?
I can't think of any like specific go-to ones, but there's one I've been using quite a bit. Or like, yeah, there's just a few that I've heard recently that I didn't really, I mean, I knew them when I was a kid, but I didn't really implement them until now. So there's one that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to say whenever somebody complimented his physical appearance. So it's Allahumma kama hasanta khalqi fahassan khulqi, which is basically like, Ya Allah, you made my outward appearance beautiful, make my inward, like my character more beautiful. And you could say that when you're looking in the mirror and stuff too. It just kind of like acknowledges the fact that Allah did make you beautiful, which is like a gratitude thing. And then it also says, Ya Allah, like, yeah, sure, that's great, but make my character more beautiful. And I think that's a really good dua to make, because it helps you also remember that, like, hey, like your outward appearance is important, sure, but what's more important is your character. And like I said, the Prophet Muhammad used to always say that a lot. And then another dua that I think is really helpful is, you know, those moments where you kind of feel like not like envious, but you see something someone had and you kind of wish you had it, you know, whether it be like someone's successes or like, I don't know, anything, could be anything small or big. There's one that's Allahumma zid wa barik, which is basically just, ya Allah, increase them in their blessings. And the reason that's such a nice dua is because it kind of like rectifies in your heart that like, okay, I'm not jealous, like, Ya Allah, I want you to increase their blessings, but also the angels say and onto you as well. So in a way it also turns it around, and you're also saying like, Ya Allah, increase my blessings at the same time, which is why like I think one of my favorite things is honoring the guests of your heart, but we'll just talk about that later. But those are two duas that like recently like I've learned them, I guess, or relearned them recently, and I've just been trying to implement those more. Because like those it's just responses to people more than anything. So what about the rest of you folks?
Well, okay, I can go. So I always get nervous reciting Arabic in front of you guys, but Surat al-Taha, funny, sorry, because Taha's here with us, verse 25 to 28, Rabbish Rahli Sadri, where it's like, oh, my Lord, ease my task for me, or expand my chest, ease my task for me, and remove the impediment from my speech. I love this dua, and I always recite this before I take exams, because this is, I don't know if you guys know the backstory to this, but this is the dua that Musa alayhi salam said before he had to confront the Pharaoh. And as you guys know, he had a speech impediment, and even he's making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, saying like, okay, before I confront one of the most evil dudes on this planet, help me and guide me. And I guess like my thinking for saying this specific dua, since we're all college students here, I said, well, I blank out a lot in exams, so please, Ya Allah, help me with whatever it is I have to do over here. That's my go-to, I guess.
I can add, this dua is like very, very beautiful, and for me personally, it's one of the most powerful duas that I've ever heard. And this is a dua that the Prophet ﷺ said after coming back from Ta'if, when people threw rocks at him and they chased him out of the city of Ta'if. The Prophet ﷺ broke down in tears, and you know, this was probably one of the lowest points in the Prophet ﷺ's entire life and his entire journey. And just when he couldn't bear the pain and the embarrassment anymore, he sat down on the side of the road and he said, Allahumma inni ashku ilayka dha'fa quwwati wa qillata hilati wa hawani ala an-nas ya arhamar rahimin. And the dua goes on and on and on. It's quite a long dua, so I don't want to say the whole thing, but the beginning of it purely says, Allahumma inni ashku ilayka dha'fa quwwati. Oh Allah, I complain to you of my weakness. Wa qillata hilati, and basically he's saying like I don't have much that I can do. Wahawani ala nas ya arhamar rahimin, the most merciful of merciful. So this is like, subhanallah, every time I hear this dua, it really it brings me peace and it brings me serenity, just knowing that the Prophet ﷺ, who is our role model and, you know, the greatest figure in Islamic history, also went through ridiculously tough times, and he made a dua this powerful. And I urge every single one of you like to look for this dua and find the translation. It's a very beautiful dua.
I think like one thing I also want to add, sorry guys, I just want to add something quick. But you know, duas don't always have to be in Arabic either, which I think is important to remember. I mean, as long as the dua is sincere and you can say it in whatever language you feel comfortable in, or whatever language you know best, whether that be English, Arabic, or Urdu. Like I do believe Arabic is ideal, but obviously like it's all about your intention and your sincerity at the end of the day. Just kind of going off of the conventional duas, I think a really important one to make is one about, oh, where'd Nader go?
I'm here. I'll be right back.
I think a really important one to make is one about gratitude. And I know like we all know I can go about this for hours, but I just want to mention this quick is just, and I was talking to Taha about this before too. And it just, ever since I heard this, it kind of stuck with me. Like literally in the Quran, Shaitan's promise to Allah was, وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. You will not find them grateful to you. Like Shaitan's promise isn't, you know, I'm going to sit there, lead them go astray. I'm going to sit there, have them, you know, fall for their desires. No, he said, Allah, I'm going to stand in their path and they're on the straight path. And I'm going to make sure they're ungrateful to you, which is why I think it's so important that whenever we make dua, we always thank Allah, because you can praise and thank Allah for the rest of your life. That could be the only thing you say, and it will still never be enough to how much you should be saying it. And I think that's insane, because especially if Shaitan's promise was just about gratitude, the fact that like if you become ungrateful for a second, then you start to be led astray immediately, because with, you know, having no gratitude, no thankfulness, whatever it may be, no appreciation, you start to fall into things like arrogance. You don't put your attributions to Allah, you put them to yourself. So there's so much downfall that can occur by not being grateful. So I think an important dua, or what I do when I start off my dua, is I just sit there and I'm like, yo, like the first thing I say is like, thank you, Allah. And I start listing off my blessings. That could be anything from like the big blessings to things as small as like, ya Allah, thank you for making me smile today, you know, for any of that stuff. And then you sit there and you realize like everything, you know, I was driving today, like subhanAllah, like I didn't get in an accident. That's a blessing. Like realistically, we don't really, I mean, at least I personally don't think I deserve any of the blessings Allah has given me, because I have sinned a lot, unfortunately. I have a lot of mistakes and a lot of flaws, but Allah still chooses to cover my flaws. He still chooses to bless me. And that in itself is something we need to be grateful for. And there's another dua, and I'll stop like going off about this after this. There's another dua, I don't know the Arabic for it. I believe it was Abu Bakr that used to say it. That was whenever someone complimented his character, he would say, he would make dua to Allah that, Ya Allah, make me better in private than I am in public, which basically is saying like, Ya Allah, make my, like who I am internally better than who people think I am. Like make me better than they think of me, which is really important, because Allah covers your flaws. Like He will hide your flaws from people. And that's why when someone compliments you, it's not because you're good, it's because Allah chooses to show them only good. So I just wanted to kind of go into that quick.
Just to add on, I mean, you did a great job of honestly hitting every single point on all the small du'as that you can make just by like looking around you and saying Alhamdulillah or Subhanallah, or however the small du'a can be, whatever language you say it in. But I feel like one that I repeat often during salah, or after salah, whenever during the day, is I really say a lot is Allahumma thabbitni ala qawlin thabit, right? And that means, oh Allah, may you please, or may you, guide me to the right words, like the words, like thabbitni ala qawlin thabit. So qawl is sorry, Nader, can you go ahead and explain that qawlin thabit?
قول ثابت. قول ثابت basically means like the solid or steadfast speech.
And when I make this dua, I feel like I go about my day making sure I don't misuse my tongue, right? And if you guys heard one of Qari Noman's Friday khutbahs, he was talking about how if you misuse your tongue in this dunya, you will, your good deeds will be erased. And the people, like, say you misuse your tongue against, if I say something bad against Taha, and then on the day of judgment, will take one of my good deeds away. I recommend 100% listening to it. I don't want, obviously I explained it very minimally, but if you want to go on Qari Noman's or ISM Milwaukee's page, you'll see one of Qari Noman's Friday khutbahs, and honestly it'll help you guys honestly go about your days much better, saying the right things, Allahumma thabbitni akunu thabit again. And I hope you guys take that into consideration throughout your days, or say it throughout your days.
There's a lot of really, really good du'as that were mentioned in the chat, and I think like we could take benefit from it. Now said, Allahumma innaka afoon kareemun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna ya kareem. This is like a very, very beautiful dua, which means like, oh Allah, you are forgiving and kind or gracious. You love forgiving, and fa'fu anna, so forgive us. And then I think Dana said, Allahumma inni as'aluka al-afiyah. Oh Allah, I ask you al-afiyah, which means, I don't know what al-afiyah means. I know what it means, but I can't explain it.
Honestly, that's one word that I never could translate. When somebody says, "Allah ya'tik al-afiyah," like may God bless your work, kind of like, and you're tired, or like, I don't know.
And then the last two I wanted to mention, Leah mentioned a really, really good dua that we should all make this dua. He said, Allahumma inni as'aluka mimma sa'alaka Rasulullah. Basically, this is like, oh Allah, I ask you from what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked you. So basically, you're basically plagiarizing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's dua, but it's okay. Like, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not going to get offended from that. And then Marwa also said, this is Surah Al-Baqarah, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. You got all your bases covered. They're like, oh Allah, grant me the good of this world and the good of the hereafter, inshallah. So
there was another dua. I can't seem to find who said it, if somebody can help me out. But somebody said Rabbi zidni ilma, which is like one that kind of came to mind first. I think that like we've all probably used that at one point, like within our academic career, but I think that just going off of what Amna was saying about how if somebody like compliments you on something that you have, so let's say for instance, like somebody's really smart and you might think that okay, like it's because they work that hard, but honestly everything that you have is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like when you make dua for something, especially like before an exam, like yes, you can ask for that, but you have to also like put in the work. And so I guess just kind of like to sum it up in a way where when you're asking for dua, like, when you're taking that exam, you can't just be like, Rabbi zidni ilma, I'm going to get it. Okay. So, and then you just like go and take the test. I feel like a lot of people see dua as that, like, give me X, Y, Z. And then they might be sincere, they might not be, but like you have to put in, you have to put in effort and then like ask for Allah. You can't just like sit there waiting for a miracle to happen. So I just wanted to I can't remember who said it, so I apologize. Unless you can kind of say it was me.
I think it was Zoya who said it.
Okay. There were a lot of chats, but it was a really good one. So.
Yeah, I think actually in ISM core they told us, I think it was Sister Aya Ali said, Allahumma zidni ilman nafi'a, right? She just added, or it was added nafi'a. Why? Because like there's ilm, right? There's knowledge, but there's knowledge that's beneficial to you. You want to make dua that's beneficial for you. But yeah, it's definitely amazing dua.
A point that Hiba made is like when you make dua, like Rabbi zidni ilma is something that we all say because we all have struggled a lot with school and different types of classes. But that sincerity aspect, like sometimes like it's there, sometimes it's not, and sometimes like we're just doing it as as a last case. So that kind of leads me into the next question: is like why do we make dua? Like what is dua? Like why what's the significance of it? Why do I have to like raise my hands and sometimes even say Arabic words that I don't really understand, and just like say them like as like a machine, so like for you guys, what like why do you make dua? Like what's your purpose? What do you gain from it? What what's the benefit from it?
So to answer that, I don't remember the exact hadith or the wording of this, but I remember I heard that if you make sincere dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's actually too shy to leave you empty-handed, which again, that is the Lord of the world, and he created you and me, and he created everything around you, and he's shy to not give us something if we're sincerely asking for it. I mean, I feel like when we think of dua, for most of us, I mean myself included, we kind of think of it as a checklist, like, ya Allah, give me a good grade, give me a good spouse, give me a nice house, I want a cool Ferrari, all that stuff. But at the same time, I mean, how I mean, and those things are great, but how many of us actually pray for our hereafter? Or the other thing, I actually heard about this recently, how many of us pray for our trials in the grave? I mean, that's something we really don't think about either, because in our graves, like, either it's going to be a very peaceful place or it's going to be very traumatic for us, depending on how we live our lives over here, or whether or not we ask for forgiveness, because not one of us on this group chat is without sin. And let's face it, like, not one of us, and again, I'm always putting myself first on this for the, I'm speaking to myself first, none of us deserve Jannat, let alone Jannat al-Firdaus, let alone the companionship of the Prophet ﷺ. But yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful that he is giving us whatever opportunities we can anyways. All we have to do is just raise our hands and just plead with him and just humble ourselves in front of him. I mean, if you think about the positions you are in prayers and sujood and everything, you are literally touching your forehead to the ground and you're just saying, Ya Allah, help me. You are like the controller of everything. We are nothing without you.
Yeah, kind of just like going off of that, like, bro, I think a big reason to make dua isn't just to like ask for anything. You know, for the most part, it can be just to vent. You know, like sometimes you're really going through it, you don't know who to talk to, or like the advice you're getting from people sometimes, like it's great, you're listening, you know, you're hearing them, but it's not really going or sticking with you, you know. So sometimes a dua can just be you sitting there, be like, Ya Allah, like I just gotta vent to you, man. Like just go off. You know, there's nothing wrong with that either. Just sitting there and truly connecting with Allah. And like it's like once you start, you just can't stop. It's incredible because like there's just, and you know, sometimes I think one of the greatest things is that you don't even have to say anything. Like you can literally just be sitting there and you'll just be staring into space, because it's just like I don't have any words. I don't know how to make words right now. I can't feel. Like I don't know if anyone's ever experienced that, but you're just sitting there and there's like just no emotion, but you're just sitting there and you're just like, Ya Allah, and that's it. And then like, you know, this is gonna be sounding kind of weird, but sometimes I make myself cry when I'm in that position, because I feel like once I start, I can't, like, it just, everything just floods out, you know. And the craziest thing is you don't have to like say anything. Oh, Ya Allah could be the only, you don't have to say, like, Allah could be the only words coming out of your mouth, but Allah knows exactly what you want to say. And it's like even after that, you just sit there and you just feel so light. Like subhanAllah, that feeling is like, it's undescribable. Like I'm sorry, like, you know, I love all my friends, like they're great and they're great to vent to and stuff, and I love them like no other, you know, like they're my family and I do anything for them. But at the end of the day, like, we know, sitting there just even crying, not even saying anything to Allah, like that feeling is something I haven't found in another person. Like truly, that feeling you don't find talking to someone else, you don't find anywhere, just up to sitting there and crying to Allah. And I think it's a hadith, I'm not sure, I heard it on a podcast, I'm sorry, that'll always make me laugh. I heard it on a podcast where I believe the hadith was, you know, the tears of a sincere repent, or just a sincere person making dua to Allah is enough to extinguish the flames of Jahannam. Yeah. Like subhanAllah, that's crazy. Like, do you know how hot Jahannam is? Like, it's so hot that it's cold. That's how hot it is. Like, and the fact that if you're just crying sincerely, like your tears that are just so emotionally filled, they are enough to extinguish those flames. Like Allah truly is like, you know, that's the best. That's why I make dua, because more than anything, like, yeah, I love, you know, Allah is the person, or not person, astaghfirullah. Allah is the one to go to when you need something, when you want something, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, you know, like when you just sit there and you have all this stuff on your mind, Allah is the only one that'll understand, because Allah knows everything. And that's such a nice feeling to have. Like, I don't even have to say anything because He already knows. I just want to sit here and just let myself fester and just cry, because it helps. So sorry.
I kind of want to elaborate on that one point she made. It honestly, like, I jumped a little when she said it, because like I like Yana worked so hard with that one, like connected with that so hard. Like sometimes you're just sitting there and you're just like you're at the, like you're just sitting there, you're just like she said, Ya Allah, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala understands your problems better than you understand your own problems. So like you don't even have to say anything, you know, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there, like he's listening. Like all he needs you to do is just raise your hands and ask, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to provide. Like, man, that is so profound, subhanAllah.
And then you guys make such good points. I just wanted to dial it back just 1 second with what Nadia said a couple seconds ago. She was talking about how we usually don't make dua for adab al-qabr, right? And basically the punishment of the grave. And it's something I often in my salah, whether it's sunnah or fard, I try at the end of my salah after I say tahiyyat, I say this dua, which is Allahumma ajirni min an-nar, Allahumma sorry. Man, you know, when I put myself on the spot, I feel like I just forget the dua. But Allahumma a'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr, wa a'udhu bika min fitnat masih ad-dajjal, wa a'udhu bika min fitnat al-mahya wa fitnat al-mamat, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-muharram wal-mugharram, right? Which is a dua I make to first and foremost for the adhab al-qabr, which is the punishment of the grave. Basically asking Allah to take this away from me, you know, making sure that I don't get adhab al-qabr, and then or asking for it. Hopefully it happens, inshallah. And then second thing is fitnat masih ad-dajjal. Obviously the dajjal will come on this earth one day, and he will promote fitna on this earth. So this is me asking Allah for taking that away from me, you know, like not him not appealing to anything that I desire, you know, me not giving in to any fitna when he comes onto this earth. Because a story I don't want to rant too much, but when Masih ad-Dajjal comes onto this earth, the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, if he's in a country, you like literally move to a different one, right? Or like if he's in a place, you have to go to the next place, because even the companions themselves couldn't even he will like he's so strong he can compel them to make wrongdoings, you know. But yeah, I feel like at the end of Salah, that's a good dua to make. Sorry.
No, it's all good. That was a really good point to bring up. I kind of wanted to connect back to something that Amna was saying about like venting. I think that a lot of us, of course, like everybody has like their own struggles, their own conditions, their own like tests, if you will. But I think like even if it's like a smaller test, I feel like most of us, not most of us, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of people like nowadays with society and just like culture in general, like we tend to complain to others and we say like, oh, you know, man, like my teacher, I can't stand her. Like she just gave us 10 assignments, or like, I don't know, that's like in a school sense, but we tend to like complain to each other. I feel like that has kind of become like a habit, which is something that we shouldn't really do. I mean, like, yeah, like it's not necessarily something bad, but sometimes when it's like more intense, like that's not something you should be like complaining about. Like, oh man, like I didn't even get a stimulus check, or like, I just got laid. Like you shouldn't like you're laid off. Like you shouldn't I guess like complain to others. You should essentially vent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, exactly what Amna said. And you know, like tell Allah, like even though he knows your situation, like say it to him and tell him like, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like la'allahu khair. I feel like that's like something I like to tell myself. Like perhaps that is something good, even though like something like you perceive to be negative might be something positive. But I think that a lot of us, you know, no matter what our struggles are, because everybody, like Nadia said, like everybody has their own sins. Everybody is also kind of tested in their own way. So whatever that test is, like it's what you do in those circumstances that kind of determines if you pass. So like if you're just chilling there waiting for the test to just like go away, then you're not really doing the right thing. Like Allah's testing you to see what you're going to do. And so he sometimes, like, you know, you might have like a little slip up so that you will go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so you will like, he wants you to go and make dua and essentially like connect to him. And it's supposed to be like a conversation between you and him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. I just wanted to share like a quick story, if that's okay, before I moved on, about just like things being in a positive light. So with like la'allahu khair, I don't know, that's not really like a dua, but I feel like that's a sort of mentality that we could have, especially in today's time, crazy pandemic going on. But so there's a story that I heard on YouTube. Some of you might have heard it, but essentially there is this king, and I don't know if I've actually shared the story before, but he had a minister who used to go on hunting trips with him, like a lot in the kingdom. And so this king one time went on a hunting trip, but his minister, like he and his minister kind of like were hunting and the king lost his finger, like while they were hunting. We're not really sure how. But anyway, he lost his finger and this king is like freaking out, like, you know, it's probably his dominant hand. Like your hands are something that you use a lot, and especially in the kingdom, like that's a really big deal. And so his minister right away, he says like, "La'allahu khayr." The king is just like so upset, like in that moment, he's like, how is me losing my finger like something good? And it was kind of like a test, if you will. And so what ended up happening is the king goes back to the kingdom and he essentially puts the minister in jail because he's like so irritated what he said. And the king like went on more hunting trips like after that. And at some point, like he went hunting and he was alone, like away from his like seniors and supervisors or whatever. And essentially what happened is that he, like while he was hunting, he came across like this tribe and they essentially like kidnapped him, and they were like cannibals or whatever, and they were gonna sacrifice him like for their god. Like they were like some, you know, crazy backwards tribe or whatever. Anyway, they wanted to sacrifice him, but they realized this dude is missing a finger, like he's missing part of his thumb, so they couldn't sacrifice him to their god. They were like, all right, we're gonna let you go because, you know, you're not a full human, you're not good enough. So they let him go, and then, you know, as he's going back to his kingdom, he's like, wait a minute, like I remember the minister told me like maybe this is a good thing. Sorry, I know the story is kind of long, but I thought it was very interesting. So he went back to the kingdom. Anyway, long story short, he let the minister out. He was like, yo man, you were so right. Like, I should have believed you. And you know what the minister said? Sorry, this is the catch. He said when he went to jail, he said, لَعَلَّهُ خَيْرٌ. And if he were to be on that trip with the king, that he would have gotten killed instead of the king. But man, subhanAllah. I thought that was very interesting to share. But yeah, it's always just like the perspective, you know? And it's like whatever you do, like in that test, like it's just about the way that you think about things.
That's very true. I just want to respond to the first part of Hiba's portion. I just want to just clarify. I don't know the word I'm thinking of. Reiterate. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But basically just like, there's nothing wrong with venting to people either. You know, like the Prophet Muhammad said, like everyone vented to him. Whenever they had problems, they go to him and stuff like that. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with calling up like your homie and being like, hey man, I need a vent sesh, you know, and just going off. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying don't vent to your friends, because I think that, you know, it's nice. I feel like venting also creates better bonds for your friends too. And sometimes it is nice to have solutions offered to you by your friends. But, you know, like, I'm just not what I was saying, but like definitely, yeah, just vent to your friends. Nothing wrong with that. But it just hits different when you're with Allah. Like those moments when you don't know why you're upset, you're just upset. Like it just kind of hits you. We're like, I'm in a bad mood. I don't know why. If I start talking, I'm gonna sound stupid. Or you just don't want to talk. You just want to like sit there in peace and alone. I think those are the best times for me, at least personally, to kind of just be like, so Allah, let's chat. I have a lot to say right now, you know?
Absolutely.
That's a good point though, for sure.
Yeah, and kind of going off that, I mean, okay, so as you guys know, I'm a huge mental health advocate. Do not feel like you can't go to a therapist either, because there are some things that mentally we can't handle. And yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be there for us no matter what, but it is actually very beneficial for you to have someone there to help. I'd like to say organize your thoughts and help you kind of navigate through the world. I still don't understand why there's such a negative stigma against seeing a therapist, but go see it. The people that I know that see therapists are the ones who are the most healthy, mentally healthy individuals, mashallah, that I have ever seen. So I just want to add that in there, based off what Amna said. And then kind of based off what I think Hiba or Amna said this, and I just can't remember when we're venting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I think we have to be very careful because, and I'm just gonna, I guess, expose myself. I used to complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not vent. And I think there's two different things. I would say, Ya Allah, why did you make this happen to me? This sucked. This was really crappy. Like, why did you make me go through that? Instead of me realizing the good that could have came there. And subhanAllah, when I think about it, all those terrible things that I have went through, they benefited me in the future, or they guided me towards the future. And it took me a very, very long time to realize that, you know what? Bad things happen, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does everything that's for the best. Like, that's what we need to get our mentality for. Even if we can't see it right now, kind of like we were saying before, we just know that in the future, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan that's better than we do. Taha mentioned this earlier. He knows us better than we know ourselves. So why wouldn't we trust him? I mean, he knows everything. He has all the power. Trust him. Oh, I didn't know who wanted to go next.
You're trying to figure it out. We're sorry, guys.
So I actually just wanted to add one more thing, like exactly what Nadia said, like that was a fire point. So just a quick example of that, like we all know the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, just the fact that like the way that his family treated him, the fact that he was dumped in the well, became like a slave, like pushed around, like used as an object. And then we all know like the story of how he became a king and everything. But like, can you imagine like what he was thinking as he was sitting like at the bottom of that well and like as he was, you know, a slave and everything, and just thinking like, okay, like why does Allah have to make my, you know, I guess journey like as a prophet so difficult? But he wasn't even thinking that. Like later on, like we have like the whole story of his in the Quran, which is really cool. But subhanAllah, like he would say, like he essentially like gave me everything. Like he's grateful for everything, like regardless of all like the negatives that happened, even though, you know, essentially like he became like a king and had such a high status, and then he ended up seeing his brothers afterwards, like what's up. But it's just a funny story to think about that. Like in your position, it might seem like, okay, like why is this happening to me? But if you stick strong and you stay on the journey and you have that trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're able to like make dua. Because of course, like he wasn't just chilling in the prison, you know, like he was making dua, of course, and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's a really, really, really great point that Nadia brought up. Thanks for sharing.
Right. Actually, Hibba, going off that, I was actually thinking this, but I just forgot to mention it. So when I was thinking of this point I was trying to make, I wasn't actually thinking of Yusuf alayhi salam, although that's a great point too. I was actually thinking of his father, because when he found out that his son was killed by wolves allegedly, he was like, you know what, I'm just going to complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I'm not going to complain to the sons around me. And even when he was talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I mean, he wasn't like angry or anything. He's like, you know what, I understand. And this is a prophet. Like, subhanAllah, he lost his son. Well, not technically, you know what I mean? But it's just a very powerful point I thought to mention, that even in moments when you're losing someone, like you're a child, Yusuf alayhi, or sorry, his father still did not complain. He vented.
Yeah, subhanAllah, I definitely think that's really powerful. And the fact that he didn't even like bring it up to his sons until like the other son was gonna like the sabr, like subhanAllah. That's crazy.
Nadia, you're muted.
I realized. So, Noah, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm so sorry. I think it's Noel or Noel, whatever. She actually said exactly like what you guys are talking about. She said in the Quran, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌ لَكُمْ. Basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, perhaps you want something to happen and it's not good for you in the long run, or perhaps you don't want something to happen. Perhaps you would hate that something would happen, and it's for the best, and it's for the betterment of you. This is in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying this. I mean, and you guys mentioned all of these countless stories about people who went through trials and tribulations only for it to be a source of happiness for them in the future and a source of success, either in this world or in the akhirah. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So
I think kind of like transitioning into like a different perspective of dua, just like this is why I think it's so important to help people. I know this is a weird like transition into like helping people, but it's crazy because you don't know the dua someone's made, you know. So sometimes you helping someone is Allah using you as a vessel to respond to someone's dua, and I think that's so powerful. You know, like you don't know if someone's like, man, I really wish someone would buy me coffee right now. I don't know, like it could be the smallest dua where it's like, y'all, like I'm really stressed right now. I just don't feel happy, and then you come and crack a dumb joke, but for all you know, like that was the dua they needed. Or let's say someone's like really like going through something and they need help and you just happen to be there and you help them out in whatever way. Like on one hand, yeah, like Allah is always there for you, and Allah answers your du'as in, you know, 3 ways, which is directly, right? Okay, he answers it either directly, he answers it later in a different way, or he answers it for good deeds, right? Am I correct?
I think I'll give you something better later.
He'll give you something better later, and then the last one is
he'll replace it with something in Jannah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, those are the 3 things, right? But also on the other hand, that's why I think it's so important to help people, because you don't know if, you know, Allah's like, all right, you need some help, I'm gonna send Taha right now. Like that's crazy. Like, and imagine the good deeds you get for not just helping them, but also for being, you know, the vessel for the dua. And I think that's something that's really important that we need to recognize is you don't know whose dua you're answering, or you don't know whose dua, you know, Allah's using you to answer. Which is subhanAllah, I think that's crazy, because Allah's not going to come down and swoop you and save in the day, you know, like he responds in different ways through things that are around us. So just want to toss that in there.
Very good point. I wanted to kind of transition into the next part. Um, so how do you like connect with your dua? Like I think a lot of times we kind of just end up like just like raising our hands and we're just like asking like Ya Allah allow us to get good grades, Ya Allah allow us to do well in this and this and that, and allow us to have good food in our plate and stuff like that. And which is good. I think that's a good first step, definitely. I think the first step is to get your hands raised and just face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and just ask. But I think to really connect with the dua that you're making, I think there's a lot more that you need to do. Someone actually messaged me. It was a conversation I had last week. And I think on the podcast or on one of the lives, I mentioned that one goal that I have every day in Ramadan is to set out time to make sincere dua at least once in the day. Like after salah, like you'll do like that quick dua, like Rabbana atina fid dunya and stuff like that. But like I wanted to make time for like sincere dua from like the bottom of my heart. And he messaged me and he was like, hey, you said this, but like, how do I connect to my dua? Like usually like I'll sit and I'll ask and like, I have nothing more to ask. I don't like, there's like a limited amount of things I can ask. And he acknowledged that there's like, I know there's supposed to be an endless amount of things that I ask, but sometimes I just get stuck. And so I answered, I was like, dua is just so much more than just asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for things. I think that's a very good aspect of it. That's the goal of it, right? We want to benefit from the dua, but there's a little bit more to it. So it goes into the venting thing. Venting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very essential. Venting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about how weak you are, how like low you're feeling, how down you're feeling, and stuff like that. It's essential for the dua. Like you build that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One thing, it's a reflection I made. I don't know if I heard it somewhere or it was something I came up kind of myself. I connect my dua to like Surah Al-Fatiha. We all recite Surah Al-Fatiha in Salah. And at the end of it, we say like, what ad-dallin, and everyone says Ameen. And it's a dua, right? It's a dua that we make more than 5 times a day. I don't know, I can't think of the number, but it's like 17 or 20 times per day. And I outline my dua based off of that. So Surah Fatiha starts, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. These 3 ayahs are praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all praise due to you, the Lord of all the worlds, the most merciful, you're the owner and the Lord of the hereafter. And this is praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next part of it is like, that's how dua should begin. I'm praising you, Ya Allah. Like you're the greatest, you're without flaw. You're everything that I do, like everything is in your control. Everything is in your domain. Then you're going into the next part, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ya Allah, I ask you for help. Ya Allah, because I'm weak. Ya Allah, you're perfect. I'm asking you for help. And you're claiming, Ya Allah, like to Allah that you are with flaw. Like you are you're struggling. Like Allah, you're telling Allah, Ya Allah, you need your help. And then you go in to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what you need. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Ya Allah, guide me to the straight path. And whenever I make dua, I kind of like to follow this kind of outline. And it helps me with anything that I ask, with school, with forgiveness, and all this stuff like that. And it really, really, it changed my life, honestly. And it made me really connect with the dua that I'm making.
That's an amazing point that you make, which is connecting it to Surah Al-Fatiha. And honestly, that was an amazing connection. Like I couldn't top that off with any other connection. But one thing I wanted to focus on was you praising Allah, right? What a lot of people forget to do is praise Allah in their dua. And one thing that I would suggest everybody does is learning the 99 names of Allah, because that will help you praise Allah. Yeah. The golden, picture frame. Anyways, I would recommend 100% to it's called know the 9 names of Allah. And one question I actually once was listening to by Umar Sulaiman, who was asked the question, is Allah one God with 99 names, or are there 99 gods, right? And he didn't mean to say, you know, as a question like, oh, is there 99 gods? But he meant it as a way to intro what he was going to talk about. Now, Allah has 99 names, but each one of his names is unique to the other, right? He's Rahman, he's Rahim, you know, they're connected, but they're also separate. There's two separate meanings. He's Al-Malik Al-Quddus, Al-Salam Al-Mu'min, you know, Al-Aziz Al-Jabbar Al-Mutakabbir. He's all these names, but you can refer to him as one of them during your dua, right? If you know one of Allah's names, you can use that name to make that dua. But another thing you got to know is that all of them are connected, because if you put every single name of Allah like together, that's what makes Allah who He is, right? All 99 names. But now if you just refer to Him as one of them, like, yeah, you know Allah for one of these things, but you need to know all the names of Allah in order for you to, you know, complete your kind of like your circle of dua. You know, like you have to know Al-Wadud, you know, Al-Aziz, you know, you have to know these, because if you know just one, right, you'll be able to make a dua for it. So Allah is Rahman, you know, Ya Rahman Rahimin, Ya Aghfir li, فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. You know, you're saying to Allah that He is the most merciful, and you're the only one that can bring mercy upon us. So like, please Allah forgive me, you know. And that's one dua you can make. But if you know another name of Allah, you can make a different dua.
Sure.
You guys brought up amazing points. I was thinking of saying something similar, but I guess to kind of top it off, like, I think the timing of your dua is also important. You know, like, you shouldn't, like, if it's one of those serious du'as, it's not like right after salah. I think that you should kind of set the tone. Like, me personally, I like to make dua in the dark. I feel like if the lights are on, like, I can't focus. I'm looking around. My Simba walks into my room, and then, like, I just, you know, like, I'm not focused. So, but yeah, like, I think, at least for me, like, that works, and I make sure, like, there's nobody else in the room. That way, like, it's more sincere, and I can actually focus on what I'm saying. Like, I'm not worrying about somebody else, like, looking at me while I'm doing my dua, like, whatever. And exactly like what Mehdi said, like, calling the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I guess to kind of like jump off of that, I mean, we know there's actually like more than 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but those are like the ones that people put in frames and whatnot, like in the Quran and everything. But yeah, I think there are like many series out there, just like listening to like the ones that I know by Yasir Qadi. So like knowing who Allah is, not just knowing, okay, like Rahman's means this, but just like knowing just in general, like the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so you know your Rabb, like when you're talking to him. Because I feel like sometimes we don't really know like our Lord, like when we're asking for dua, sometimes we make it like superficial and we're not really like sincere with it. So that's definitely a really big aspect, and especially what Taha said with this like vulnerability, I think that's really important. But something that I also just wanted to kind of touch on is in Surah Al-Fatiha, like when we are like making that dua essentially, I can't remember who I was listening to when they were like essentially doing the tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha, but just real quick, they were essentially saying that as we're reading it, you know, we're saying Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, which ties back to what Amna said about just like gratitude. So you're literally starting out and you're saying, okay, like thank Allah for everything. Ar-Rahman Rahim, you know, most gracious, most merciful. Maliki Yawmiddin. It's like, yes, like you're grateful. And you know, you're about to ask like some sort of dua, exactly what Taha said, like it's a beautiful outline. But I thought that like just that flip, like Maliki Yawmiddin, like, you know, he's essentially, you know, gonna, I don't know what the exact wording is, I'm forgetting, I'm having a brain fart, but essentially that he's gonna control, you know, everything on the Day of Judgment. And I think that's an interesting flip, because you think like, okay, like Allah is most gracious, most merciful, but don't take advantage of his mercy. And so I feel like as you're remembering dua, a lot of us might think about like the worldly things and you know, like the examples that Nada gave earlier, just like materialistic desires, but remember like the akhirah and the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gonna, you know, look at everything that you've done throughout your life, and just the fact that it's just kind of like a constant reminder that we should honestly think about the meaning, like as we're reading Surah Al-Fatiha. I thought that was something that was very interesting to kind of bring up. It's not just worldly things, also focus on the end.
Yeah, subhanAllah. I mean, everything you said is everything everyone is saying is super helpful and very important to keep in mind. One thing that I have learned from oh my gosh, why am I blanking on her name? Sheikh Saad's wife, Sana. Oh my God, sorry guys. Anyways, so me and her were talking about this, and she told me that actually giving sadaqah after you're making dua for your prayers to be more likely to be accepted. And that's actually something that I try to do. And the thing is, it's like there are so many different types of charity that you can give. I mean, just helping someone out like with something that they're struggling with is a form of charity. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's monetary. And that's something that I try to get in the habit is like before or after I make dua, I'll purposely go out and look for a good deed to do, just so it's like, okay, you know what, ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I am being serious about like this is what I want, and to show you how serious I am, I'm gonna help my mom clean the cat litter, even though I really don't feel like doing it, but I'm gonna do it, or whatever it is, or I'm gonna give this $10 I have to whatever charity organization's going on, even though I can like get overly priced coffee with it or something. It's just stuff like that. I mean, thing is, when it comes to dua, they should be in line with your actions. You cannot expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept your duas when you're not showing any skin in the game, as the saying is. I mean, you have to make some type of effort, and that's just something I've learned, and it's really helped me seeing a change. Because again, I used to be that type of person. I would just complain. It's like, Allah, you did this to me, you did that to me, and then I would make no effort on myself. It wasn't until I started, alhamdulillah, changing the way that I perceived Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, number one, because I can't remember what the I don't know if it's a Quranic verse or if it's a hadith, but it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I am how my believer views me or sees me, if you guys know what I'm talking about. So if you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as merciful, he's gonna be merciful to you. You also need to start acting merciful towards other people. So long story short, pair up your duas with good deeds. Cool.
Kind of actually just addressing what Nadia said really quick. So yes, I am going to talk about this podcast for as long as I live, inshallah. The Heart Work series with Maryam, I don't care, I will always mention it. But there was this story that Abdurrahman Murphy talked about, and he was talking about how, you know, sometimes if your du'as aren't being answered, you know, you might have to sacrifice for the sake of Allah in order for them to be answered, because there's something that's holding you back. So there was this story he mentioned about this lady or whatever. She, you know, if you're like Daisy, you understand this weird obsession with hair. So she had like really, really nice hair, mashallah. Every time she go to like a dawah or a Zuma or like a party, whatever you want to call it, everyone would be like, oh my God, mashallah, your hair is beautiful, fantabulous, spectacular, phenomenal, insert any adjective, insert an adjective source here, you know, whatever you want, right? So they complimented her like crazy. And the thing is, she was trying so hard to have a baby at the same time. Like they tried for years. I don't know, like, I think that feeling genuinely is probably one of the most, you know, emotionally exhausting, is constantly trying for a kid. But anyways, she was trying for a kid for years. And then like, subhanAllah, one day she just shows up and she's in a hijab, right? Like totally random, never talked about it in her entire life, and just tosses in a hijab. And we're like, oh, well, it was nice seeing your hair while it lasted, but you look great in the hijab. And she was talking to, you know, Abdurrahman Murphy about this. And like, she was just like, and like later on, she was talking to him about this a few months later. And subhanAllah, she actually became pregnant later with a kid, a very healthy baby boy, mashallah. And she was talking to Abdurrahman Murphy about this, and she was saying how she missed her hair and all this stuff, you know, like, you know, if you're a girl, you understand, especially if you're a hijab, you understand. But she just like missed like the compliments and missed her, like showing off her hair, and a hijab can be a struggle sometimes, whatever it may be. But then she's just like, you know, I totally 100% believe that Allah blessed me with a child because I sacrificed something for his sake. I sacrificed the feeling I get showing my hair for his sake, and Allah blessed me with a child. Like, she's believed that for so many years, and maybe, you know what, maybe she is right. And from experience, I can tell you as well that, you know, there's been things that I did not want to give up, whether that be, you know, whatever it may be, but I did it for the sake of Allah. Like, truly, like, it, to be honest, broke me at some point to give it up for the sake of Allah, but I did. And subhanAllah, Allah's blessed me with the best months later. And I think that's crazy because, you know, sometimes if Allah's not answering your du'as, you have to sit back and think like, you know, Allah's always listening and Allah always gives. So is it something on my end now? Is there something that I'm not reciprocating, that I need to fix something, that I need to do something in order to receive that dua? So I just wanted to like touch on Nadia's point. And then sorry about this really awkward transition into Ishma's comment. But she said I stopped asking for specific things and just started asking for help and guidance. And subhanAllah, I honestly feel like my prayers were answered. Okay, I agree with that to an extent, to be honest, because I definitely think it's important to ask for guidance and start asking for help and guidance. I think that's always important to mention, but you should also be specific in your du'as. Like, if you want something, be specific. Allah is there to give you what you ask for, you know? So like, if you want, even if it's something like, ya Allah, I want a red Ferrari 2015 X Spider 5100, I don't know cars, as you can tell, but if you want one, like, be specific in your du'as and Allah will give. At the same time, though, I think it's important to acknowledge that when you ask Allah, don't feel entitled. Don't feel like Allah has to give you that thing. You know, you're not asking Allah because you expect something in return. You're asking Allah because He's Allah. That's it. Like, you don't just sit there and think, Allah, you're gonna give this to me because I asked. No, you're thinking, Ya Allah, I really want this, and I'm asking you because I know you're the only one that can give. So if I deserve it, please give it to me. Like, there needs to be some, like, a very strong level of humility in your dua when you're asking Allah for something. And that's something that we tend to forget when we're asking for things. And then also, if you're asking for something very, very specific, like, let's say, I'm gonna jump into this topic. Let's say you're asking for like a spouse, okay? And like, there's someone you have in mind, whatever it may be. I also think it's important, even if it's a career, even if it's a job, if it's something like that where it'll affect your future, it's always, and I've been making this dua for years now, alhamdulillah, it has worked wonders. I will tell Allah exactly what I want to a T, you know, and then I'll say at the end, like, Ya Allah, I really, 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 really want this thing, whatever it is, I really, really want it. But if it's not for me, don't give it to me. And if I don't care how bad I think I want it, if there's better for me, Ya Allah, don't give it to me no matter what. And if it's not for me and I'm not going to have it, please take it out of my heart. And you have to be so sincere in that dua, like truly, like even with istikhara, the key is sincerity. The most important component of any dua is how genuine and how sincere and how much tawakkul and trust you have in Allah. Otherwise, that dua is not going to be properly answered, because that is the key to all your duas. So I just wanted to, sorry, I kind of went off on a long rant about that, but I just think that's important to mention, that you need sincerity in your duas no matter what.
So there's a, I believe Taha mentioned this earlier. He was talking about like the etiquette of making dua, and Sadi actually made a really, really good comment in the chat. This is it's phrased in a very funny way, but it's actually, there's a good point to it. It's called dua burger, and this is just a sort of way to, a sort of etiquette of dua, because we all just expect to make dua and expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hear our duas and expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to answer our duas, but it's really not that easy. It's not that simple. So I just want to go over this dua burger really quick. This is something that Hafiz Farhan is our old Hifz teacher, Quran teacher, mentioned to him. And I think Sheikh Saad Qadri mentioned this as well. But basically, Sadi explains it very well. He says the bun is praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Condiments and toppings are salah upon the Nabi. So basically you just say, Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad, or just say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then the patty is the actual reason why you came to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or in other words, it's the actual dua. And then the lettuce is the salah upon the Nabi, and then the bottom bun is the praising of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you know, this is just one way, one of many ways to like sort of structure your duas or format your duas, but just realizing that there's a sort of etiquette to making dua. One of the most important things that I think someone already mentioned is coming to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with humility. And as Nadia said, like, you can't just come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala complaining to him and just saying like, Ya Allah, why did you do this to me? Like, Ya Allah, this sucks, whatever the case may be. Coming to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a pure heart, with pure intentions, with total humility, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decision is best, knowing that whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses for you is either going to be good for you in this life, and if not in this life, then inshallah in the hereafter, right? And even if you don't get that Ferrari Spider or whatever Amna said, which is not a real car, it doesn't exist.
I tried.
Even if you don't get that Ferrari Spider, it's okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't will it for you in this life. Inshallah, you'll receive something better in the akhirah. There's other etiquettes that sort of just I missed.
I think one thing I want to add to that is I think it's essential that we have conviction and yaqeen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can and will answer in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not in the way that you expect, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer it in some way. And I think there's a story, I think Yuan actually mentioned in his khutbah. I don't know if I'll do it justice, but I'll try. But there was someone named, he was like a minister of the Islamic Empire. His name was Hajjaj bin Yusuf. And if you guys aren't familiar with him, he was pretty questionable in his acts. There's a lot of beef between him and some Sahaba, so I'm not trying to like get too much about that. But he wasn't the best of people. he was a little bit corrupt. But there was one point where he was doing tawaf around the Kaaba, right? And there was this blind man, and obviously he can't see, right? So he's doing tawaf, and he accidentally like bumps into Hajjaj bin Yusuf. And the blind man was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." He's like, "Do you know who I am?" He was like, "No, I mean, I can't see." And then Hajjaj bin Yusuf was like, "It's Hajjaj bin Yusuf." And then this blind man's like, "Oh, frick, I really messed up." And then he was like, Hajjaj bin Yusuf was like, I feel like I'm messing up the story slightly, but basically he said, if you you really messed up, and he was like, "I'm going to kill you." And see, that's why I feel like I'm messing up the story somewhat, because it's really extreme. But this part of the story is definitely true. He said, I'm going to kill you, but if you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by tomorrow that your eyesight comes back, if your eyesight comes back, then I'm not going to kill you. And then this blind man's like freaking out, right? He's like, "Man, like, how is my eyesight gonna come back?" And then he goes and he makes dua, right? He cries and he cries and he cries and he makes dua, "Ya Allah, allow my eyesight to come back. Ya Allah, allow my eyesight to come back." And he's making dua, and then tomorrow hits, and then Hajjaj ibn Yusuf approaches him, and he's making that meetup time's about to come, and then he's like that 5 minutes where he knows it's about to happen. The dua, like, he hits that yaqeen, he hits that conviction level, and he's crying. He drops his hands down, and like he can see, right? Because the dua he made with so much conviction. Because I mean, what other choice did he have? It's either death or his eyesight gets back. So he made that dua with so much yaqeen that it came true, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make anything happen. And then Hajjaj bin Yusuf was like, that was kind of the point I wanted to make, that dua is made with yaqeen and stuff like that. It was a little bit violent, but the point still stands. With conviction, dua is accepted.
I think dude, Hajjaj bin Yusuf is a tyrannical character. I think you said the story right. But just adding on to what you said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Ana 'inda husni dhanni 'abdi bi," like, where my abd, or where, my servant, what he thinks of me, basically, I am there. What he thinks of me, I am that to him. So if your hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you have like an optimistic attitude, and you believe, like Taha said, if you have the yaqeen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to pull up for you in the fourth quarter, hit that shot, and come up clutch for you, he will do that, inshallah. So just having that yaqeen, and just realizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there for you, as long as you have that optimistic attitude, as long as you believe that he's going to be there for you. It's a really good point.
I mean, it's so important to have yaqeen. But another thing that I noticed from a dua that Qari Noman made the other day on the 25th night of Taraweeh at 12 at night, he does dua every odd night. I would 100% recommend tuning into that. But he said, first and foremost, which is why I got the idea of the 9 names of Allah. He recited the 9 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then after that he said, allow yourself to cry. He's like, allow yourself, and if you can't cry, he's like, try to make yourself, like, force yourself to cry. And if you can't force yourself to cry, like, at least like feel it in your heart, like that you're making this dua very sincerely and very strongly, that you like and you submit yourself to Allah, and you like, he's like take pride out of the equation. He's like take pride out of the equation. He's like, you have to submit yourself to Allah, and you have to kind of be vulnerable, and you have to be like vulnerable in the eyes of Allah, and you can break down in tears, and it doesn't matter, because you're asking for something and you're crying for it, but the only person that you can ask is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I thought it was really important to have both yaqeen and to be very sincere in your dua, and you guys hit those points really greatly with those stories.
I just want to share a very quick 60-second personal story. Kind of going off what Taha said about the whole like yaqeen thing. So you know, I mentioned this like previously, whatever. So my dad had passed away when I was a kid, right? Allah yarhamu. So after he did, my mom was kind of here alone, whatever, just struggling. And she always says this, like this, and it's kind of like the fact that this happened just blows my mind. My brother at the time was 10 and he was crying, like crying so hard. So there's this like this Pakistani desi Indian thing called roti. It's really just bread. It's not that exotic, to be honest. It's just roti, but me and my siblings are just like suckers to that thing, right? It's so good. That's the best bread ever. Anyway, so my brother was 10 and my mom, you know, my dad just passed away, so financially it was a big struggle, and she was new to the country, and whatever it may be, you know, like it was just hard for her to find any means, or especially find any food means. And my brother was just crying and crying and crying to my mom. Like he's like, Ammi, I really want roti. Ammi, I really want roti. Ammi, I really want roti. And mom's like, there's no atta, which is dough. She's like, there's no dough. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to get dough from. I don't have the money. I can't even drive. I keep taking right turns, so I don't have to take a left turn. Like, it was a really rough time, you know. And my brother was just crying, and my mom started crying too. And she just made so much dua. She's like, Ya Allah, please, like, please help us. Like, she didn't even know what to say. She just said, please help us, please help us, please help us. And then subhanAllah, this is the craziest thing, right? So we have like a porch window or whatever, and we had like someone over at our house, and they're like, you know, like mom's name was Anila. So like, Anila, like, look, someone's just dropping something off. And she looks, and there's this dude in a hood. We, to this day, she was not able to recognize him. She didn't see anything, just some guy in a hood. He dropped off the same bag of dough she needed for the roti, and he left. Like that was it. And he just dipped. And then my mom went up. She's like, who was that? Disappeared. No idea who this dude was. He came, dropped it. And that was the same brand of dough my mom used. Like, she's very specific and particular. I'm sure everyone's mom is. But the fact that she was like, just that same exact brand, and it was just this huge bag. And my mom was like, oh my God, I can make roti for my crying 10-year-old son and my kids now. And subhanAllah, like to this day, like we don't know who this person was. No one, people who were in the living room, you know, they didn't see a face. They just saw a hood, some guy, a bag of dough, and he dipped. And like she just had, like, my brother was crying. I'm sure he was like, you know, he's a kid, so his dua's gonna be accepted too. And the fact that my mom was just like, Ya Allah, I don't know what to do, just please help us, please. Like, I just want my son to be fed. And this bag of dough comes out of absolutely nowhere, and that's it. And like subhanAllah, like that amount of yaqeen, especially in that moment when you really need it, like Allah is Allah. Like he can make anything happen. Like he's made miracles. He split the sea for Musa, bro. Like what can he do for us, you know? So I just want to share that because like it actually like happened. And I think that's insane because sometimes we kind of neglect or we just forget that miracles can happen for us too.
Dude, I'm gonna interject really quick, and I'm sorry for interjecting, but speaking of like miraculous, mystical things that happen, my mom always mentioned this story to me. And if you know my mom is one of the most, like, mashallah, one of the most like strong, one of the most like strongest people when it comes to like her deen, mashallah. And she has so much yaqeen, so much hope, so much like, mashallah, just faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she used to always tell us like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is literally like having a direct impact on your lives. And she always mentions this story. She can correct me if I'm wrong because I think she's watching this, but she always mentions the story where I was one time like sitting under like a painting or something, or like a big frame or something like that. And she literally like tells me the story. She's like, this happened 100%. I was sitting under this painting or this giant frame, and I was a little baby at the time. And somehow this frame fell down right above my head. It was like right above me. This frame fell down, and I just saw here. This frame fell down, and subhanallah, like my mom said, like 1 second she was looking at the frame falling down, the other second it was like nowhere near me. It sounds really weird when I say it. Like it sounds like, even for me, I'm a big skeptic. I'm a skeptical person. But like she has so much yaqeen, so much faith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala literally had a hand in protecting me. And dude, I mean, it's hard to argue with that because if you know me, I've gotten in a lot of car accidents and really bad ones too, and I'm still alive somehow. Alhamdulillah.
Wait, I just want to add one more thing.
One thing before I'll stop talking.
The oh yeah thing that Taha just said.
Yeah, so this is a funny story. Taha put this in our chat. This is a funny story, and it may seem like kind of dumb, but it's honestly it's a dope story. Me and Taha and I believe it was Mustafa, a couple of our friends, we wanted to order chicken wings so bad. We have this tradition when school was in that every Thursday we would go and we would order chicken wings from Oh Yeah Chicken and More. Plug us, Oh Yeah, but every Thursday we would go through this process. So one time on a Thursday, we wanted chicken wings so bad. And I remember we were on our way to the place and we called and the guy was like, guys, I'm sorry, we're out of wings. Or they said like, we have 4 more chicken wings left. And Taha's an eater, bro. Mashallah, this man can down 10 wings in 5 minutes, bro. All right. So we all knew 4 wings wasn't going to be enough for anybody, much less Taha, right? So we get to, oh yeah, chicken and more. Like all hopes are lost. We have to resort to ordering a burger or like a Philly cheesesteak. And then sure enough, a good friend of ours is at Oh Yeah Chicken. And this man ordered like the entire menu. He had like 50, 60 chicken wings. And subhanAllah, out of nowhere, he's like, yo, I have a lot of extra chicken wings. Do you guys want? And sure enough, like we got to eat our fill of chicken wings. And
I swear to God, we got more wings from our friend than like we were planning to order ourselves. Like subhanAllah, like it's funny, but like swear to God, like we were so like we like that was the biggest L of the whole week. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like pulled through. We got like hella wings.
I have a serious question for you guys. Did you cry when those chicken wings were offered?
I didn't cry, but Taha actually mentioned this to me. And this is why I love Taha so much, because
so funny.
You have friends who give you perspective on life. Like if you go through that process, you're just like, you know, we got lucky, we got some wings. But he's like, dude, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came through in the clutch for us. Like he knew we desired this so much. And he came through in the clutch for us. Like it sounds really minuscule and small, but dude, it's a matter of perspective. Like there's so many times where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes through in the clutch for you and you may not even realize it. So be aware of these things.
Just kind of like quickly adding one more thing is like, yo, Allah's miracles are the smallest things. Like we think miracles are this huge thing. Like, yeah, Allah's gonna like, I don't know, have me fly to campus because I'm an hour and a half late to my exam, which I have been, mind you. But that's not like, it's not just those things, it's the small things, like the fact that you made it home safely, the fact like I'm the type of person where like if you know me, I've been severely injured in several ways. Like I had a metal bar fall on my head and I was stupid and took a nap. I didn't have a concussion though. I woke up alhamdulillah 30 minutes later, totally okay. Like that's a miracle, to be honest, you know, like those small things, those small moments are miracles. Those are Allah's rahmah. That's Allah, you know, like answering our desires or like even protecting us from things. Like we don't recognize or we don't realize that, you know, those small things are miracles. We have this weird image of miracles being this huge, like phenomenal, astronomical, world-changing thing, but that's not always the case. They're the small things, which I think is really important to keep in mind. So just wanted to toss that in there.
Well, something oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna make a quick comment. You can go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to know who made the dua. You know, like was it Taha? Was it Mustafa? Like, which one of you guys like intended this in your minds? Like somebody who made some really strong dua. Maybe all 3 of you guys. You know, Allah Alam.
I think all 3 of our chakra came together and just made dua itself.
And all that chakra, bro, man, that was some good chakra.
I guess kind of circling back on track to the question about like etiquettes of dua, something that I wanted to kind of add was, you know, like adding the caveat that whatever comes out of your dua is like good for you. So something I just want to quickly mention is in Surah Maryam, when Zakaria, you know, is kind of like old of age and he really wants a son because he realizes like that, you know, Maryam kind of, alayhi salam, like she had like a miracle, more or less. Like he didn't just make the dua like, oh Allah, like give me a son. I want somebody to, you know, to continue my lineage or like whatever it was. You know, he added the caveat that وَجَعَلْهُ رَبِّي رَضِيًّا, you know, like make him pleasing to you, you know, make him of the believers, make him a good person, like of good akhlaq. And so I think that sometimes like when we make dua, we kind of think about it like selfishly, but I'm not saying this in a way where like you kind of say it in a way where it's like, make it good for me, like, and that's the end of story. But I think that is just like important caveat to kind of like add on top of any dua in general. And just the fact that you, I forget who mentioned earlier, I think it was Taha or Nadia, but just confiding in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he will answer your dua in one of those 3 ways that we mentioned earlier that Amna mentioned. And then just like quickly, one more thing is, I know Mahdi mentioned the Dajjal at the beginning. And obviously, like we know, we read Surah Al-Kahf to, or at least like the first 10 ayahs to make sure that inshallah, like hopefully like this doesn't happen, but if we do live like at the end of those times and, you know, the fitna of Dajjal is upon us, then we read those ayahs. But something I just want to quickly mention is in Surah Al-Kahf, we all know like the story of the sleepers, the cave, the fact that they were able to have, trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But not only did they make dua, but they also like, they physically did something. So they made dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like help us out of the situation, like we're essentially being hunted for more or less from their society of disbelievers. And then they like fled to the cave. So when you're making dua, you have to do something. You have to do something on your end, and then you can of course like ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something as well.
That's a very good point. One thing I really want to quickly address before we kind of transition to the last part. Amna mentioned this like a while ago, and she said sometimes like we're doubtful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like hearing our du'as, and I think Umar radiallahu anhu said this, but I'm not exactly sure. But the point still stands. He said it's in terms of dua. He said, I'm not concerned about my dua being answered because the person who's answering the dua is also the one guiding me to do dua. So if he's the one guiding me to do dua, then why would he not accept the dua like overall? And that's just so like deep, because like, I mean, I was a little bit of like back and forth, explained it a little, but like if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one guiding us to make the dua itself, would he not answer it if he's the one guiding us? And that just brings me like so much hope. Like the second I raise my hands, I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got my back, because he's the one who pushed me to make dua anyways. So that's kind of the point I wanted to make. And the next final thing I kind of want to talk about is, we have dua, right? We talked about dua for the last hour, 10 minutes, hour, 15 minutes. How can you apply that right now? We're in the last 10 days. It's the 26th night. There's 3 days left in Ramadan. They say that dua is the most powerful thing in these last 10 nights, more powerful than any other act that we can do in these last 10 nights. And we all know the benefits of Laylatul Qadr. We still have 2 odd nights ahead of us, the 27th night and the 29th night. And we really need to maximize the dua that we're making and the efforts that we're making in these last 10 nights to get the most benefit from it. So what do we do? Like, how can we maximize the dua that we make in these last 10 nights?
I mean, just to quickly recap. I mean, first and foremost, you gotta make sure that you got the yaqeen, you got your very sincere in your dua. The first 2 things you gotta do. But how to maximize these things, dua? I feel like first and foremost, whenever you say dua, like Taha said, it's like Allah puts those words in your mouth. Like you don't even like, or you put those thoughts in your head. Whatever thoughts are like dua you make, it's with the will of Allah. And sometimes, I don't know if you guys this ever happened to you guys, but like sometimes you'll make dua and it feels like so fluent and like so like crazy, like just it's so crazy how you're making this dua that you didn't even intend to make, but in the moment it just happened, right? But to maximize this dua, I feel like first and foremost, there was something that somebody said was Allahumma innaka afoon kareem tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna. That should 100% be recited multiple times during the last 10 nights. On top of that, time yourself, right? So at the beginning of your salah, try to make a dua, recognize Allah for who He is. So when I start my salah, sometimes I say, sometimes I forget what I say, but like if you want to search it up, sometimes there's a good dua to make, recognize Allah for who He is. And then when I go for a sajda, my first sajda usually is Allahumma ighfir li wa liwalidayya Allahumma arhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. And that's a good dua to make when you're in sajda for your parents, right? And if you can't make this dua in Arabic, obviously you can do the English translation, which is just oh Allah, may you forgive me and my parents for anything we've done and wrong in this life. And then oh Allah, may you forgive, or sorry, Nada, can you explain the second part of the dua? Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira.
Oh, this is the same one we talked about on your live.
Yeah.
Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. Oh Allah, have mercy on them as they raised me when I was a child.
Right. Now that's good dua to make during sujood. And at the end of salah, like I mentioned before, it's good to try to ask Allah for to forbid you or take away from you adab al-qabr, and which is the adab al-qabr, which is sorry man, you know, sometimes when I translate Arabic to English it's kind of hard, but I'm just gonna go ahead with the Arabic. Hopefully you guys understand. So Allahumma na'udhu min adab al-qabr, وأعوذ بك من فتنة المسيح الدجال وأعوذ بك من فتنة المحيا وفتنة الممات اللهم إني أعوذ بك من المحرم وغرم. What I'm trying to basically say is when you're doing your salah, make sure you transition your du'as. You know, at the beginning you say something, in the middle you say something, but in specific times of salah, make a du'a. You know, whether it's the beginning and during your sajda, try to like maximize it that way.
Another really good way to maximize your dua is, so someone actually told me this, they do this the other day, and I've low-key been using it, a dua book, or like in your notes section, just having like a list of things you want to say. So, I don't know who I just did with my nose. I don't know who watches the Angels in Your Presence series by Amr Suleiman, but he had this really good short, one of his episodes was about honoring the guests in your heart. So whenever you make dua for someone, there's an angel this angel's duas are always accepted. So when you make sincere dua for someone, that angel says and onto you, and that angel's dua is accepted. So when you make dua for someone, that dua goes towards you and Allah accepts it, which is subhanAllah like a whole different concept of how merciful Allah is, that like if you love someone and you make dua for them, Allah will accept that same dua on you, which I think just blows my mind, you know. So I have like a dua notebook, and like I have a list of like people who recently have been like, hey, make dua for me for this, whatever it may be, and I have it listed. And so when I'm sitting, I like read over it and I'll look at it and I'll just start making dua for whatever it is that they want, you know, on the last 10 nights. And like, I'll get in my feels a little. If I gotta cry a little, I'll force myself to cry, you know, think about some puppies. No, but like really, like I'll just sit there and I'll like really think about, like I said, my blessings, you know, the things that you know I've been through, the things that I've experienced, and the people that I make dua for. Like if you ask, like I'll make dua for you always, of course, and I even make dua for people. Like, you know, when you just start making dua and you make dua for the whole ummah, like that happens quite a bit. But like there's certain people who like I'll make dua for, and then subhanAllah, bro, I just start crying because I just have so much love for them in my heart. And I know for a fact that once I start making dua, like I'll always start with them too. And I know when I start making dua for them, like I can make dua for hours at that point, you know. And I think it's really important to have like a list, not even like it could be a mental list, but it just helps me have a physical list of things I want to mention in my dua, so I know exactly what I want to say and how to start it. You know, I don't want to just sit there, especially if I'm not going, like when I'm going through stuff, I can sit there and just start crying. But when I'm just like, you know, just in this stagnant phase or just chilling, just vibing, you know, whatever it may be, I like to have a list of things that I need to remember to make dua for, because if I promise I'm going to make dua for you, I'm going to make dua for you. And if there's something I really want, let's say I forget, I have a short-term memory, not medically, I'm really bad at remembering things. So like I need to have that list of things that I want, or things that like I'll be like driving around, walking around and think, oh yeah, I want to make dua for this. Oh yeah, I want to make dua for this, but I want to make it when I'm in the right time, like that right place where I'm sincerely sitting there talking to Allah. So having a dua notebook, I think, really helps a lot. Or like even having it in your notes or something, it's really something that helps me maximize exactly what I want for my duas these last 10 nights. So
I think you bring up a really like amazing idea, Amna, because having that just like list of things can definitely help you to keep track of everything, especially since we only have like a few days left of Ramadan. So just to make sure that you like get everything and you didn't forget about anybody or any dua that you wanted to make. Something that I kind of want to address is just like the aspect of like reflection, because you know, if you're asking for forgiveness like within your dua, I think it's important to kind of reflect on like how the past year has been for you between like now and the past Ramadan. So Zoya in the chat said, my mom told me to stop talking and reflect. So I think that's really important. We kind of touched a little bit about that in the previous podcast, just about personal reflection, introspection. I think it's just really important to kind of think about, like I said, like how the past year has been and how you can change, because Ramadan is essentially supposed to get you through the next year. And so while we still have what is it, like 2 odd nights left, you know, you make the most of it and essentially ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you to get through any future hardships that you have. I think that's an important dua that you can also make. But just like the act of reflecting, I think we also kind of touched on this earlier, but just like sitting there and just kind of thinking about, okay, like what am I doing right now that's awesome that I can continue doing after Ramadan? Or what can I change in my habits, in my lifestyle, in my ibadah that maybe like I'm lacking, or maybe like I only pray sunnah for like a few salahs. Maybe I should start praying sunnah for all. Maybe I could start fasting Monday and Thursday. So think about like I know that that's not necessarily like an aspect of dua, but I feel like it's a good like reflection to have, so that you can make that dua and say like, Ya Allah, help me to do this, like whatever you want to do, whatever you want to improve on. So I think that was like just one important aspect. So Zoe, that was a really good comment.
For me, so to answer the question, how to maximize dua within the last 10 days, I would give a threefold answer. The first fold of this answer is something that Sadi actually mentioned in the chat. Good job, Sadi. I'm proud of you, little brother. He said something to remember when you're making dua is you can't just make dua and sit back and relax. You have to make the effort required for the dua to be accepted. That's big facts, man. Like, again, it goes back to our understanding of how dua works, or shall I say misunderstanding. Like some of us feel like we could just make dua and hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept that dua without us putting in the effort. No, man. If you want to make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes you a dentist, then work hard to become a dentist, make dua and work hard. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't just sleep in, not study and expect to become a dentist the next day. You have to work hard and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come through with the reward afterwards. Another thing that I wanted to mention, the second fold of the answer, this is, I'll give credit to my mom because she texted me this. Basically make dua when you're in sajda. Sujood is the most powerful stage in your salah. I don't know if it's a hadith or a say. I don't know if it's a hadith. I think it's a hadith, but basically you're closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you are in sujood, right? So when you are in sujood, and I don't know if you guys here agree with me, Ramadan Radio Cast, but for me personally, like when I'm in sujood, I just feel the most serenity, like in my salah, out of my entire, the actions of salah, like whether you're reciting Quran or whatever. When I'm in sujood, man, I could be in sujood forever. Like I hope, inshallah, that Allah takes my life when I'm in sujood. So really try to spend a lot of time in sujood. Try to spend a lot of time in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while you are in sujood. And I forgot the third fold of my answer, but that's okay. So
just to quickly comment, I mean, the significance, I think, of the sujood is you're closest to the earth and like you're just like, basically closer to Allah in a sense, or like and another thing is like when I would think of sajda, I think when I'm in sujood, I feel like if you do sujood, like other than inside your house, like if you want to go outside and do pray outside and do sujood, I feel like you feel it even more so because like you're outside and you feel like everything around. I don't know. I feel like I'm more like about energy type of person. I like positive like energy, or like energy flowing around me when I'm like praying.
Go ahead.
So I was something to address about the sajda part. Sajda is so cool. Like yeah, I agree that like doing sajda is like so beneficial. But like if you think about like sajda in general, you're taking like the most honorable part of your body, your face, right? We're distinct by our face, right? We like people are attracted to our face, or we're attracted to other people's face, and we take that and we bow down and drop it to the floor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in worship and begging him for like the things that we're asking for. And it's just so like, it really, like, I think someone said that as long as someone like we stay doing like sajda regularly, then arrogance will never, like deep arrogance will never enter our heart. Like iman will never leave our hearts, because we're literally taking the most prideful part of our body and taking that and putting it to the lowest part. So like it's just amazing to see.
So I remembered the third fold of my answer, and this goes back to having yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, this is something that my mom used to always, or she still says this to me all the time, but she says like when you're making dua or when you're thinking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't say, and she says this phrase in Arabic, she says, don't say Ya Allah ana andi ham kabir, say Ya ham ana andi rabb kabir, which basically translates to English, don't say Ya Allah, I have such a huge problem. Say problems, like my huge problem, I have a huge Lord. You know what I'm saying? So just have that yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and just remember that no matter how big you think your problems are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is way bigger than that, bro.
I just want to quickly add to the sujood thing, the sajda thing. Like subhana rabbil ala literally means glory be to Allah the highest. and you're like, and like Taha said, you're on the lowest point of the ground, you know, like your head is literally touching the ground. It's a very humbling position for you to do that. So subhanAllah, I just think it's crazy. Like your head is down the ground and you're saying like, glory be to Allah the highest, because I'm here on the ground face first because you are the highest. And I just think that's very interesting. That's very cool, to be the proper word.
And just to quickly add, like I also heard it's literally the closest you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like literally in your salah. And so that's why it is the most like perfect part of your salah to make dua for. So I think Taha and you guys made like amazing points.
I feel like something like to take for the last 10 days is, I think if we've been struggling with our du'as, not to get like sad if we can't sit and like cry and stuff like that. It's not easy for everybody. Like it's hard to break tears like in that sense, but I think it's told to us in hadith that if you struggle to cry, like try to cry during your dua, but if you can't cry, act like you're gonna cry, like pretend like you're crying, and it just puts you into perspective. Alhamdulillah, I've recently kind of got, like within the last year, gotten like that connection to dua, and it's a process. So like, don't feel bad if you're not there yet. Like you can't sit and do like a 30-minute dua of less you complaining to Allah and asking all these things. It's a process, and I think if you time yourself and pace yourself, you can get to a very, very good place with your dua. It just don't rush into it. Don't feel too bad. I was in itikaf last year at Majra Huda, and Sheikh Saad Qadri, he is a G. Like his duas, like he can sit like 30, 40, like to an hour, like just going, like just keep going. His heart flows. And I realized that like, man, like there's literally nothing, there's no end to dua. Like we can keep asking and asking. And I think we should all strive to be at that point. It's just a slow process. And we can all get there, inshallah. So that's this kind of thing is what I want to mention is don't try doing too much. I know it's the last 10 nights, but try as hard as you can and try getting to that point. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our efforts, inshallah.
So one thing I kind of want to mention, because I think we covered a really good ground basis, but one thing I think we're forgetting to do is that, oh God, so I'm trying to remember the exact translation or the exact hadith that I came, but I think it's something along the lines that every Monday and Thursday, the gates of heaven are open, or something like that. And whatever du'as you make, they're going to be accepted. So if any of you guys know what I'm talking about, please jump in and correct me. But the thing is, it's like when you're making dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I'm not going to accept the dua of someone who has a grudge against his brother, which that is so scary when you think about it. So one advice I have, and again, I speak to myself before I speak to other people, that yes, it's very easy for us to say, you know what, ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like I did this wrong or whatever, and I need your help. But it is so much harder when you have to forgive someone else, even if what they did was completely wrong and horrible. It's much harder to do that because that person directly has hurt you and you want to kind of, I guess, get revenge or something. And that's something I wanted to mention because, again, we're talking about like, you know what, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, forgive me. Are you asking forgiveness for your brothers and sisters, even for the ones that have wronged you? And that's one thing that's important, because with Islam, one thing that is emphasized is that we have this beautiful ummah, that we should be keeping our brotherhood and sisterhood alive. And unfortunately, what I have seen over the past couple of years is that pettiness and just being petty and holding grudges, that's praised. And it's pathetic. I mean, this is why the ummah is split, because we have forgotten how to communicate with each other, how to pray for each other, how to love each other. And if you can't do that for your own brother and sister in Islam, how do you expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept that dua for you? Like, that's just one point I really, really want to make, because I've been on that side of someone who was wronged. And like, I would sit there and I'll just say, you know what, ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the only thing I want from this person is just for them to say sorry. That's it. That's all I want, because of how much they hurt me. And I will do whatever I can when I have made a mistake, or when I realize I made a mistake, that I will reach out and I'll say, hey, you know what? You and I, we don't get along for some reason. Let's sit down and talk about this. And even if we still have, I don't want to say resentment, but if we have disagreements among each other, we should still be able to sit in a room and have a civil conversation, no matter how much we disagree about something. That's something I really, really want to mention because, again, it's Ramadan, and I really want every single person who's watching this, myself and everyone in this chat, to take benefit of this. I don't want any of our du'as to not be accepted just because we can't we can't simmer down our ego, and we can't let go of our arrogance and just say, I'm sorry, even if we weren't wrong, by the way. So I'm going to conclude with that.
I think that's
No, I'm not. Oh my gosh, sorry. Nadia.
I'm honored.
I mean, everybody's spitting facts today. But no, Nadia, you bring up a really, really amazing point. And I think I was going to kind of bounce off what something Amna said earlier, but just the fact of making dua for other people, even though like they might have wronged you, can actually kind of alleviate some of that like pain or like remorse, some of the, I guess, like ill feelings you have towards that person. And also just the fact that going back to something we mentioned in a previous episode, that nobody can enter Jannah if they have like a mustard seed's weight of arrogance. And like also like you won't be able to enter Jannah if you haven't forgiven like your fellow brothers and sisters. And so I think that's like such a profound point. And something
We all know that side glare here, but you're like, really?
Anyway, something that something Amr Sulaiman said, I don't think it was in his Angel series, but he had like some episode on YouTube, but long story short, he was saying something along the lines of how like before we enter Ramadan, I know we're like at the end of Ramadan, but you should essentially like forgive your fellow brothers and sisters even though they might have like wronged you, because you won't be able to actually like reap the benefits of Ramadan. So like exactly what Nadia said, like that's something really important. Like a lot of us, it's really hard to forgive and forget, but honestly, you have to move on, and that can be really hard. But if you don't, and you hold that grudge inside yourself, like you won't be able to, focus on your ibadah and just like reap the reward. I think like Nadia, you bring up a really, really important point.
To kind of go off of that and then like do this thingy. So it is interesting though, because sometimes there's people who you can ask them for forgiveness, but they don't forgive you. Like unfortunately, there is just some people like that. And actually I was talking to Sheikh Saad's sister Aisha, so subtle plug to his family just in general. And I had asked her, what if I keep asking someone for forgiveness and they don't forgive me? Like I put myself out there quite some few times to be like, yo, I'm sorry. Hey, I'm sorry. Hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm sorry. And they're just like not accepting it. So actually it goes like, if you have sincerely apologized to someone 3 times and they still don't forgive you, Allah will still forgive you because you went out of your way that many times to ask for forgiveness. And I think that's something important to remember, because unfortunately there are people who are very stubborn, and we shouldn't strive to be like them at all, where we're too stubborn to forgive our own brother and sisters for a fault they may have committed. But there are people like that who just don't forgive. So it's important to keep in mind that ask 3 times, and if they still don't accept, be like, you know what, I did my job, Allah forgives me, then talk to Allah from there on. So I just want to remind everyone of that. And then kind of transitioning into like why you should forgive people. Like Allah is so merciful, and I think that's something that needs to be emphasized. Yes, Mahdi, I keep throwing back my scarf because I know you're going to mention it again. I think that's something to emphasize for these last 10 nights, is that Allah is literally Ar-Rahman, like the most merciful. And like we think our parents are forgiving, like we mess up so many times with our parents, but our mom will still come and cut us up from fruit even if she's mad at us. My mom will yell at me like crazy, but if I don't eat dinner, she'll yell at me even more because she wants me to eat. Like that's completely different than anything else. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful. There's this thing I heard where there was this man who constantly kept sinning, repeating the same exact sin, right? And he sincerely, did the steps of forgiveness, asked the person to forgive him, asked Allah to forgive him, and then tried to rectify his actions. And Allah forgave him, right? Then the same thing, he did the same thing again, but he sincerely repented again. Allah forgave him. That kept happening. You would think eventually after some time, like if someone kept coming to me and repeating the same mistake and apologizing, I'd be like, bro, can you stop? Like you're annoying, fix yourself. So the angels eventually asked Allah, like, yo, are you gonna keep forgiving him, because he keeps making the same exact mistake? And Allah said, as long as my servant sincerely repents to me, I will forgive him every single time. We are sinners. That is who we are. We have shaitan, not during Ramadan, but just in general, we have our own faults. We have our own flaws. We are not perfect. The thing that separates those who go to Jannah and those who go to Jahannam are those who repent. So ask Allah for forgiveness, because He is here to forgive. He wants to forgive you. He wants to forgive all of us. He just wants us to sit down and be humble enough to ask, Ya Allah, I have messed up in so many ways. I don't even know. I've unintentionally hurt people. I have intentionally hurt people. I have done so many bad things. I'm a terrible person. I'm a sinner. But Ya Allah, you are Ar-Rahman, you are Ar-Rahim, so Rahim, please forgive me. You are the only one that can forgive me, because I have messed up. Allah knows like so well that I don't deserve Jannah. I don't deserve to step foot. I don't deserve anything, bro. Like, it's crazy. I'm just gonna say I, because I don't know about anyone else. Genuinely nothing, but Allah still keeps giving, because He's the most merciful. And once we can keep that in our heads, that Allah has done so much for people who didn't deserve it. We think of Quraysh, we think of all those people, the people of Ta'if, they hurt Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and they still became Muslim in the end. Allah has done so much for them. What makes you think Allah won't forgive you? So just keep that in mind. Like, this is the time to ask Allah to for forgiveness, for repentance, because He wants to forgive you. And inshallah, with sincerity, He will 100% forgive you. You just have to ask. So I just wanted to drop that in.
I think that's really important as well. There was to kind of go off of that, there was a hadith. I don't remember exactly what it was, but long story short, essentially, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that like so and so is gonna enter Jannah, like he's guaranteed Jannah, like while he was alive. And the companions are saying like, Ya Rasulullah, like why? And so they were trying to like figure out like, okay, what does this guy do? Like I think like they would follow him and kind of see like what kind of deeds he would do like throughout the day. And they couldn't figure it out. They're like, all right, this guy must be special or something. So they ended up confronting him. They're like, yo, man, like, okay, what do you do exactly so that you're so special? And I think he like listed a few things, but then he said, the last thing I can think of is that every night before I go to sleep, I forgive anybody who's wronged me. And I think that's so powerful, because like, think about, like, I'm sure we've been wronged by like a few people, at some point in our lives, and think about how sometimes like we might go to sleep and still hold that grudge. And, going off of like what Ahmad Sulaiman is saying in his series, and I'm sure but like a good number of y'all have probably watched it, the angels would always ask us, before we go to sleep, like, and if you have something that's negative on your mind like that, that's not only going to have you to go to sleep in such a negative, like you're ending on something bad, but you might also like wake up on something bad. And so something like holding a grudge, like not only is something that like can affect you and just kind of have an effect on your deen, it can also kind of affect you in the long run. And so I think like this hadith was very powerful, in my opinion, just the fact that being able to forgive, not only forgive, but also forget. I think that's like just really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, just relating to what you said, and then Amani said this in the comments down here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stops forgiving when we stop asking. So I was talking to Sana Muhyiddin a while back. Honestly, that family, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them. Amazing, amazing people in this community. Okay, I mean, anyways, just we were talking about this, and she told me that when it comes to I guess when we are merciful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be like, oh, you know what? You think you're merciful? I'm going to show you what mercy is, which is so important to remember, that if we show mercy to others, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to show it to us. I mean, I think this story just came to my mind. If you guys probably know what I'm talking about, when this Prophet Muhammad, he was with his son, I believe, and he was like kissing him, and this Bedouin guy walked in. He's like, oh, you kiss your son? You show him affection? Like, what the heck? And then Prophet Muhammad, his response was, those who don't show mercy won't be shown mercy. SubhanAllah. I mean, that is so important. So I guess when we are going through these last few days of Ramadan, and even after, just be sure that you're going to take that conscious effort to be extra kind to other people, especially those that get under your skin, because you're going to reap the fruits of that when you are facing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. I don't know if I said that right or not, because it is like 1 o'clock and we all know my bedtime is 10:30 p.m. So let's move on.
So I mean, it is 1 o'clock. So I'm going to make some concluding points, kind of sum up what we talked about. I think it's important for all of us to have yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that his du'as, he's going to accept our prayers and our du'as. And it's important for us to kind of have the outline of the dua that Nader mentioned, the burger method. just to vent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what he's there for. He is ilah. Ilah means the person that we turn to our problems. So if he's there for our problems, then we should go and say those problems to him. I want to end off with a hadith. It's a little scary, but I want, and then I'll conclude after that real quick. It's a pretty famous. You guys have probably heard it. The Prophet ﷺ was climbing up the minbar, and Jibreel, he says Ameen 3 times, and the Sahabas ask him. They're like, "You did something odd. You said Ameen 3 times as you're going up the minbar." And the Prophet ﷺ said, Jibreel alayhi salam came down and he made dua, and I said Ameen to them. And I'm not going to go into all 3 of them. They're all pretty different. But one of them is that the dua was, Jibreel alayhi salam said, "May the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be on someone who witnesses Ramadan and isn't forgiven." And the Prophet ﷺ said Ameen. And that is so scary. Like someone mentioned Ta'if and stuff like that. The Prophet ﷺ didn't even curse the people at Ta'if, right? The worst day in his life, he didn't even curse those, but he cursed these people. He cursed the people who witness Ramadan and aren't forgiven. And what does that mean? Like this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ar-Rahman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Ghafur, Al-Ghaffar, Ar-Rahim. And in Ramadan, he is the most merciful, but in Ramadan, he expands his mercy even more. In Ramadan, he expands his forgiveness even more. It's to the point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is almost offended at the fact that his mercy doesn't reach you. He's offended at the fact that his forgiveness doesn't reach you. And it's to the point that he's willing the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon that person. It's very, very scary. And we only have 3 or 4 days left. We really have to make the most of it, these next 3 days. With that, I'll end with dua. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Ya Allah, forgive us for our sins, Ya Allah. We are weak, Ya Allah. And in this month of mercy, Ya Allah, we still, Ya Allah.
Super awkward.
Well, you froze.
Froze with a little dua.
Nada, take over.
Allah allow Taha to become unfrozen, inshallah, and grant us, inshallah, the best of this life and the hereafter. And Ya Allah, accept all of our du'as and allow us to make du'as with the most sincere intentions, and allow us to make du'a fully knowing that whatever you decide for us, whether it is the acceptance of the du'as in this life or whether it is the reward in the akhirah, fully knowing that whatever you decide for us is what's best for us, O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, allow us to take full advantage of these last 10 days of Ramadan, or these last 5 days. And Ya Allah, please accept our Ramadan, please accept our fast, and accept everything else. Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi.
Wow, your dua shook Taha so much he got off the chat. MashaAllah.
Hey guys, just like, subscribe. We have our Qiyam inshallah Thursday, which is going to be exciting. So inshallah we will be finishing Thursday. Mahdi's currently eating Cheetos. I'm judging you.
I'm actually sponsored by Chester the Cheetah. You know, he kind of told me that he'll give me free bags of chips throughout the whole year. So go buy some hot Cheetos, guys. They're really good.
Nope.
Good Ramadan snack.
Don't do it. It's going to mess up your stomach. Just letting you guys know. But yeah, Qiyam Thursday night. We're doing Meet Your Host Wednesday, inshallah. We're trying to avoid odd nights, just so you guys can, maximize your dua and stuff. See what we're doing there. So inshallah, Nadia will be Wednesday, and then QN will end the host thing with a bang on Friday, inshallah.
Ask us whatever questions you want. Get personal, but not too personal.
Yes. And like I said, Thursdays are Qiyam. We just want to say thank you guys. We're obviously going to do a bigger thank you Thursday, inshallah. But alhamdulillah, it's been fun doing Ramadan Radio. Hope you guys are enjoying. But yeah, just have a blast. Like, subscribe, turn on push notifications. Post this on your story. Get wild. Islamically, of course. All right. We'll call it a night then. Assalamu alaikum. Let's all pray for Taha as well, because Allahu alam where he went.
I think his Wi-Fi dropped.
That's awkward. Bye, guys.